Hey everybody, this is Rosanna from Hillsburn, and you're watching the Makin Waves Songwriter Studio.
This is Joe Costello, Program Coordinator for Arts, Culture, Creative Events, and Program Coordinator for Sydney Credit Union Makin Waves. We bring to you the first episode of the Cape Breton University Songwriter Studio. Our first episode is with Carleton Stone, a songwriter from Sydney who you may know from his solo career or with the incredible group Port Cities. We'll talk about his career, we'll talk about his songwriting, and we'll hear some new songs that he's written over isolation. We hope that you can join us for all of the episodes of the Songwriter Studio taking place over the next 3 weeks here on the Cape Breton University's YouTube page. Cheers.
All right. Try a new one here. All my heroes died in classic cars, yeah, the 27 Club. Tears on the guitars, had a couple of friends. Didn't make it that far, so I got a tattoo on my arm. Cut my teeth paying for a cover charge, but it wouldn't even cover tab at the bar. And I'd drive all night just to sleep on some floor, try to get my foot in the door. I'm lying in a hotel room, I think of you. I feel lonely. That's how it should be. If you see me walking down the street, please look right through me. That's all I deserve on the other side. The grass is already green, it's that best night. You drank from your memory, it said kiss goodbye. You said that you'd never leave, it's a sad song. Backseat of a limousine. Just say yes, 'cause yes is what you do when you sing for your supper. Someone better than you trying your world and walk in your shoes, but they don't know what you lose. So if you see me walking down the street, just look right through me. 'Cause that's how it should be. And I raise another glass of champagne. I should have saved for your birthday, but we're doing alright on the other side. The grass is already green, it's that best night. You drank from your memory, said a kiss goodbye. You said that you'd never leave, it's a sad song. Maybe we're alchemists, turning tears into gold, like ice cold Coca-Cola, cleaning blood off the road. And the more that it hurts, the more you believe in our sad songs. Backseat of a limousine. Oh, oh, oh. Backseat of a limousine. Oh, oh. Okay. I'll play, this is an old one called Pick Me Up, Dust Me Off. Every day, it's never gonna be the same. It's never gonna be the same as today. Takes a while, make a man of a child. To make a man of a child takes a while. You'll find out. Everybody's filled with doubt. You gotta listen to yourself, baby, you'll find out. Let it go, let it go. Everybody's getting old. We're driving down a one-way road, just let it go. When you fall hard, someone's bound to break your heart. Pick it up and dust it off. Pick it up and dust it off again. When my mind goes dark, I can't find the missing part. Pick me up and dust me off. Pick me up and dust me off again. Setting sun. You never know when your time has come. Something that you can't outrun. It's a setting sun. Saving grace, saving grace. Every time I see your face, every time I see your face, it's saving grace. When you fall hard, someone's bound to break your heart. Pick it up and dust it off. Pick it up and dust it off again. When my mind goes dark, I can't find the missing part. Pick me up and dust me off. Pick me up and dust me off. Pick me up and dust me off again.
So, Carleton, what are some of your earliest memories of music, just as you were growing up?
I guess in my house, both my parents are kind of amateur singer-songwriters. Like when I was a kid, my mom would write songs and had like demo tapes, and she would play in bands. So I just kind of remember being a kid and going to see my mom's gigs, and obviously just so much music in the house, you know, whatever they were listening to, like James Taylor and Carole King, and kind of more of the folky side of things. So that was, yeah, just always around. And I think they got me a little guitar that I, you know, learned a G chord and sang every song I knew to a G chord for like run around my house and stuff. So yeah, it just always kind of seemed like music was around, not like a big decision of like, I want to be a musician. It was just kind of happened. So.
And do you remember, a lot of people have like that first memory of a song that kind of stayed with them their entire life. Mine is Sonnys Dream by Ron Hines. I remember my dad singing that to me when I was young. Are there any of those songs from your like early childhood that stuck with you over time?
I remember, and this is kind of obscure, but anyone from Cape Breton will probably know, but my parents were good friends with Terry Kelly, awesome songwriter, musician from Cape Breton. And I remember, so they'd be playing like some of his songs, and I'd be like, oh, this is cool, or I always just liked it. And then he would come over to the house for dinner with my parents sometimes, and I'd be like, this is the guy that sings this song that I love, is like, you're him? Like, and it just, you know, kind of connecting, you know, the songs you hear with an actual person, that just blew my mind when I was like 6 years old. I was like, how is this guy here? He's in the stereo, you know?
So we go back a long time. It's probably
Yes.
close to 20 years now.
Yeah.
When we first met, it was really all ages music scene based. So we had a lot of friends in common: John Hatcher and Mike Willett and Charles Urich, and we were all like. I remember. I think I met you. John was picking me up so that we could go to a show at the Northside Exhibition, and we all ended up in the same car and stuff like that.
I remember that show so well.
Yeah.
That blew my mind, that show. And what we were all like, I was 15 or something, I think, at the time. It's all those bands, you know, seeing people your own age play music, that was blowing your mind. That night, I'll always remember that. Just actually seeing real people in your community, like on stage playing original music, and there's, you know, 100 or 200 kids at the same age that are all freaking out and loving it. And there was such a like robust scene at that time. And I was like, I just wanted to be one of the people on stage, you know. I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, to be up there and make all these kids like rock out, move around, and want to get their parents to drive them, you know, 30 minutes to North Sydney to come see a show or whatever. It was just, I fell in love with that pretty much instantly that night that we went to that show, you know. And then seeing guys like Steve McDougall and Jay Smith and like their bands who were like kind of a few years ahead of us. They were like more, you know, late high school, kind of early university years in their lives. And just thinking that was like Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen, you know what I mean? It's like they were just the coolest guys, and I just wanted to be friends with them and write songs with them. And yeah, I think that's where I caught the bug.
Around that time, you would have been starting to write your first songs as well.
Yeah.
What was it that attracted you? Was it your family and those experiences that attracted you to writing songs, as opposed to, you know, just, you know, having fun with other people's tunes?
I was just never really into like performing other people's songs. I just always had this desire, even as a teenager, to like, I wanted to make my own. And even if I had to, you know, write a bunch of crappy songs and play a bunch of crappy shows where no one's listening or whatever, that was all like really beneficial for my songwriting, because I got to see when I would come up with a good one. You know, you're trying to finish a song. Oh, okay, I got a show on Friday night. I want to try to finish this new song so we can play at the show. And then you play a new song and suddenly everyone stops talking and looks at you. And you're like, whoa, okay, that must be a good one, because they all paid attention for once. So yeah, I think just creating something from nothing was always like what excited me the most about music, even if it was just like a little guitar riff, or, you know, when you're starting out. So yeah, I always kind of, now I'm like more into learning songs now to be like, how's this song work? Oh, this is so cool. And I've gotten a lot better at that as I got older. But yeah, as a kid, I was like, I don't want to be some cover band, blah, you know.
Fast forwarding a couple years, as you get into your late teens and early 20s, I guess the first kind of break, you were playing in a band with The Good News.
Yeah.
And then that kind of moved into Carleton Stone Drives the Big Wheel, and into your solo career after that. Those formative years there where you were learning to kind of play with other musicians and stuff like that, how did that begin to shape your songwriting?
Well, I think a lot of the gigs, and you'll know once you kind of you're over 19, you can start playing at bars, and now people are drinking and talking, and so you're playing with a rock band and you're turned up to 10 and all that stuff. But kind of, again, affected the songwriting of like, well, you can't just go play a bunch of slow songs for a crowded room. If you want to make any impact, you got to be writing stuff that's like upbeat. So it definitely made me more conscious of that from an early age. I just learned that lesson pretty early on, that like people want to have fun, they want to move. Like if you're going to play one ballad a night, it better be like the best song that's going to knock people's socks off. And you can't play a whole set, because you just, within half a song, you see people's attention. They're turning and talking to their friends. They're not looking at you anymore. So yeah, I think that affected just being aware. Like no one wants to hear your sad ass stuff all the time, you know?
After that kind of period, or maybe even during that period, when was it that you started to connect with like Gordy Sampson and start with the Gordy Sampson Song Camp?
So that all started, I met Jay Smith through this battle of the bands at Smooth Herman's, which was, we put like Carleton Stone Drives the Big Wheel or whatever, that stupid name, was just kind of like, we needed a name to enter this contest. And it was me and John Hatcher. We were like thick as thieves at the time. Still love John, chat with him. But so yeah, we just put this name on it and we entered this battle of the bands, which Jay Smith was one of the judges one of the weeks, and part of the prize was you got to go write a song with him if you won the contest. So it's 7 or 8 week contest. We ended up winning. Went to Jay's house. We wrote a song on the first night, which was actually on my first, like the first 2 records I put out. Really, I redid it, and then we just like hit it off as fast friends from there. We're writing, we were hanging out all the time, and then him and Gordy were obviously friends for a really long time. So then Gordy came home from the summer, and I'd be hanging out with him and Jay. So just kind of very organically, kind of got into that little circle, which I felt so cool at the time. I was like, oh my God. And Gordy was like, had just won his Grammy. He was like real hot at the time. Everyone was like, Gordy Sampson is a superstar and he's from Cape Breton,
Yeah.
So then, I think I hung out with him maybe a few times. I think I opened some shows for him at Christmas that same year. And then the following summer, I was playing at Rock the Dock. I'm sorry if this is taking too long, but it's actually kind of funny. And we were opening, maybe we were the first band on, and Jimmy Rankin was the headliner. So we played our set. It was fine, whatever. And then me and the guys in the band started to like indulge in all the free beer backstage. So we're all just like watching all the other bands. I can't remember who else was on that night, but Jimmy was on last, and Gordy had just come home for the summer and goes and crashes the stage, goes and plays with Jimmy. Everyone's going crazy. And I think I actually got on stage and like do-si-doed with someone. And then after that's over, everyone's leaving and me and Gordy are hanging out. And he's like, hey man, don't know how we didn't get your name in this, but we're starting this thing. It's like a songwriter camp. I don't know how it's going to go, but say this was Thursday night. He's like, it starts on Sunday and like, you got to come. We'll find a place for you. You can crash in my room and whatever. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds insane. And then he gave me his number, which was like the first time I had his number in like my flip phone. And then, the next couple of days I like came home to my parents. I was like, Gordy Sampson asked me to go to this songwriter thing. It's in 2 days. Like, I don't know. And then, sure enough, the next day Gordy called me. He's like, okay, Steve McDougall's picking you up. After Slow Coaster, we're opening for Snoop Dogg that night. And he picked me up at like 2 a.m. and we drove to Ingonish, and then the song camp started the next day. And then was just like, I think we got there at like 4 a.m. Me and Steve and Gordy wrote a song that night.
You started out as, a member of the song camp, and then became kind of one of the mentors after a while. What do you feel that has played in, the way that you're writing songs, but also the way that you've been able to deliver that information to new songwriters as they come along?
Good question. I think like Gordy's kind of mantra of the song camp, which has kind of trickled down to all of us, is like, he's not taking people there to teach them how to write songs. He's selecting people that have a little spark of something going on in the province, that already know how to write a song in their own wheelhouse. So it's more about just kind of almost more being like a tour guide in the world of co-writing, so like getting 3 strangers in the room that have never met each other, and it's like, okay, what are we going to write about today? And being able to, if someone's like, well, I had this little idea, I'm not sure if that's any good, and you're like, what, are you kidding me? That idea is amazing, let's write that. And I think a lot of it is more kind of being a cheerleader, kind of keeping the ball in the air and helping other people express their own ideas in their own voice through your craft and experience. But it's never like, here I am, I'm the big song leader and I have this idea and it's better than yours. It's almost like the opposite of that, where you're just trying to, my focus for so many years was just trying to like bring out the best in other people's stories. And I would way rather hear someone sing a song that I helped them write that is like genuinely them, than be like, okay, let's write this idea so I can sing it. So and I think that has helped me kind of through the years. Just kind of develop my craft without it being focused on me all the time. You know what I mean?
Going through the song camp, would that have been the first time that you'd run into people like Mo Kenny and Bria McKinnon and Dylan Guthrow that would be collaborators?
Well, yeah, Mo was of the first. I think there were 6 writers at the very first song camp, and me and Mo were 2 of them.
Yeah.
So we had never met each other before that day, but during that week, we like hit it off as just like friends, and we hung out. I don't even know if we ended up writing together that first year, but we just hit it off as friends. And then it was the following year that Dylan and Bria came, and yeah, so then obviously just started kind of collaborating with them, just very casually, like a song here, a song there, but never really anything too serious, you know, or nothing well planned. And then as time went on, I'd be like, oh, I need a guitar player for a full band gig for my solo shit. And I'd be like, hey, Dylan, can I hire you to come play guitar? He'd be like, yeah, sure. And then it's like, oh, I need a keyboard player for this gig. And it's like, oh, why don't I ask my best friend, Bria McKinnon, who also happens to be an amazing backup singer. You know what I mean? So, and then like Bria's hiring Dylan to play in her band. So we all kind of just started like interacting, and me and Dylan and Mo had a little thing for a while. We did like a CBC special together. And yeah, so all those kind of clogs in the machine started turning for a couple of years until we ended up like officially joining as Port Cities, me, Dylan, and Bria. So yeah, that was all kind of within a year. I kind of met the 3 of them. They've all been very important in my life, obviously, and still are.
And I remember listening to an interview that CBC did with Bria when she was at St. FX, I think, and her talking about those tours where it would be like you and Dylan and her playing solo sets and then just collaborating on each other's songs and stuff like that. And then I actually got to see what would have been, I guess, the first Port Cities gig at Nova Scotia Music Week. Was it Nova Scotia? Yeah, opening for Blue Rodeo and Adam Baldwin.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was funny. I don't know if Dylan was on that gig. I can't remember. He might have been though. But yeah, that was kind of like it was billed as Carleton Stone, but the idea of Port Cities, we didn't have a name yet, but we were all pretty sure, okay, let's give this a go. And yeah, like you said with that Bria thing, like we booked basically a song circle tour around the Maritimes, just like, you know, a few gigs in Nova Scotia, a few in New Brunswick, PEI. That was billed as all 3 of us, but by the end of that tour, we were all singing each other's songs and harmonies on everything and just backing each other up. And by the end of that tour, we're like, wow, this seems like a band now, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of went from there.
How was that transition for you as somebody who had been, you know, performing your own material for so long to then be part of a more conglomerate?
Well, I loved it. Like I always, my whole life, like wanted to be in a band, you know? And it's like, I played with other musicians my whole life, but I was always the one that had to be kind of like spearheading it,
Yeah.
you know, where I was never a good enough electric guitar player that someone would hire me to play in their band. I could only play in a band if I wrote the songs and then got someone who's better than me to help me perform them. So yeah, that idea was like just the idea of like the 3 of us, like all for one, one for all. We're kind of like 3 lead singers that all have our own individual strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of fill in some of each other's holes. And I just loved that idea, you know, and I still do. So yeah, that was just trying to keep that balance and knowing that the most special thing about the 3 of us was the kind of differences between us. And then how can we write songs to kind of like, okay, how is this song going to let Bria shine?
Yeah.
You know, for this song. Okay, now Dylan's going to shine for this one, or me, you know? So like consciously thinking about that from like an audience point of view and a consumer or whatever point of view helped kind of shape the songs we're writing, the songs we were picking to record. And we had like some good time to test them out live, like when you're talking about getting to showcase at ECMAs, like getting some of those opportunities that take a few years most of the time for new bands, like right out of the gate, and getting to see what people are reacting to and stuff like that.
Having the connection as well that all of you have this family connection to Cape Breton, with Bria originally from the Waterford and yourself from Sydney, and then Dylan obviously his father from Sydney Mines and him spending a lot of time back here. How, like, that kind of shared history of, like, you come from a similar space, not only as songwriters but as people. Do you find that allowed you to connect stronger as songwriters as well?
That's a good question. I think because we had all been exposed to a lot of the same music growing up, it wasn't like, obviously we're all hearing like the Beatles or, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and stuff like that, like in our own houses. But then we're also hearing like fiddle tunes and traditional music and more stuff from that kind of like real folky, Scottish, Irish tradition. So yeah, that was just kind of this common understanding that we all had of each other, even though we weren't really making that kind of Celtic music at all.
You've now been kind of recording and performing around the world with Port Cities. It's really gelled into the album that you released, but then also subsequently the singles that you've released, like Montreal and stuff like that following it. How has the experience of being in Port Cities and touring the world that way, how has that differed from everything you'd done previous to that?
Well, yeah, just like I'd only really toured in Canada and a little bit in Germany before Port Cities. So just the actual like on the ground learning what it's like to be touring the UK and go do a 3-week press tour that's like, exhausting, and you're, clocking 1,000 kilometers a day and hitting up 5 different radio stations. And, some you'll go into some of them like, all right, who are you again? It's like, if you have any kind of ego at all, like if you have some success where you're from and then you start exporting to other markets and you're no one again, it really, like, you got to be prepared for that, and you learn that really fast. And you're kind of like, we're all just hungry, like going out there trying to promote our music and spread the word about it. But yeah, like the lessons that you learn in that kind of intense international touring, like 150 to 180 days a year for the last like 5 years, there's you can't read about that in a book. And like all the struggles that come along with that, from the people you leave at home to making sure you're being as polite to everyone you can be, like sharing hotel rooms with and all that stuff. Like it's all big like life lessons and like business lessons. So I'm really grateful for, like, especially now when we've all been at home for 2.5 months, like grateful for those experiences that maybe traveling won't be like that for a long time,
Yeah. And, I guess it seems like the most organic way to move into, the last couple of months. So there's been some big changes with Port Cities, with Bria moving on and moving towards a framework with yourself and Dylan Guthrow. But then directly following that,
Yeah.
the world falls apart and we're all stuck in our houses. How has isolation allowed you to kind of reconnect with yourself as a person, but also yourself as a songwriter and a performer?
Well, I feel like the first couple weeks, and I'm hearing this as a little more of a common thing, I was very, like, I don't want to say stressed out, but I was very like glued to the radio.
Yeah.
I was just like, everything was changing so fast, and I became like, I love, like, I'm a CBC junkie and a Twitter junkie anyway, like, but now all this stuff is changing so fast, and like restrictions and all that. So I kind of don't feel like I got a lot done for the first couple weeks. I was just so like, what's happening? And my parents were out of the country. I was looking after their place and their pets, and then, you know, all the stuff starts happening. They catch the last plane out of like Honduras, and like then quarantine. You know, it was just like the first couple of weeks were really intense. But then kind of realizing, okay, we're going to be here for a while. I need to be productive. So yeah, just kind of setting my own schedule, and like you said, getting back to connecting with my own voice as a songwriter, you know, just kind of getting back to like me and like maybe some of the ideas that I had kicking around in my head, that I'd be like, oh, that's not a Port City song because it's too like dark, or it's too folky, or it's too whatever. I've been able to kind of just go back into that and explore stuff that I want to say, which has been really nice. And I'm, you know, actually getting ready for this. I've been just kind of practicing the last few days, going through all these new songs that I have and stuff. I'm like, wow, I have a big little body of work here that I am proud of. And I'm like, am I going to make another record? I'm like a middle-aged 30-something-year-old guy. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like a smart decision, but yeah, just kind of enjoying that, I guess, and trying to keep the work flowing now, knowing that, you know, our business is going to be one of the very last to come back, you know, so just like waiting for my new computer so I can set up my recording better, you know, and like, okay, it seems like I'll probably won't be playing a show for like a year, so I better get really good at something.
You explore a lot of different genres and a lot of different themes. What are, you know, some of the big elements in your life that you find like that you draw from on a regular basis?
That it's funny, like that first song I played, and all these thoughts that have been going through my head kind of become even more relevant during this pandemic, where I've been kind of thinking for the last like year about like, what is the musician's value in society, you know? And kind of thinking about that from like my own point of view, and people that are really successful on the surface, but have whatever issues in the background in their personal lives or business lives or whatever. And then some of the people that go for it that, you know, get lost along the way, and just kind of thinking how like society treats that. So all these kind of thoughts were in my head, and I have like a little body of work now that explores these ideas. And now singing the song in the pandemic, it's like some of my musician artist friends are the only thing keeping me sane at home, you know, like watching Adam Baldwin play every Friday night, or watching the Town Heroes, or, you know, just like, and seeing the community rally around musicians. And like, I know some people like Adam Baldwin, he is crushing it. You know what I mean? He's like, and people are very generous. Like he's raising money for like, you know, mental health Nova Scotia, or like a different cause every week. And then people are, you know, go on his Bandcamp and buy a $5 EP, but leave him $30, or, you know, like he's making money and raising money. And certain people are like, I kind of like this. I get to stay at home, you know, and it's getting some value when everyone's stuck at home. So yeah, I think that's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, and just trying to explore that in my writing more so than, you know, that's kind of new. But yeah, always like death and sex and drugs, all that stuff, you know, just never goes away. All the fun stuff to write about.
There are definitely some common themes across the musical landscape for sure.
Yeah.
So where can people find both your solo stuff and the Port City stuff online?
I think it's pretty much everywhere you can find music. Obviously Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, whatever. We're just about to launch the Port City's Bandcamp with in the next couple weeks. So we're just kind of getting that all together and being able to fulfill merch orders and have all our merch set up there. So yeah, pretty much anywhere. You know, awesome. I've tried to keep some of my old stuff off Spotify so no one can find that anymore. So
awesome. Thanks so much for joining us on the Songwriters Studio. we're doing episodes kind of connecting our audience with the songs and the stories of songwriters that have performed at Making Waves over the last 5 years. And it's been really great to, connect with you again. It's been a while since we've got to sit down and chat.
I know. It's nice talking to you, Joe.
So I'll turn it back over to you for a couple more songs.
Okay, cool. I'll do another new one here. It's called House in the Hills. Woke up, checked Instagram. America's at war with Iran. When the shit hits the fan, I got a blunt on my nightstand, and the devil's in the White House. Even got the kids picking sides now. And someone stole my coat from the bar on New Year's Eve, and it was cold out. And I don't need a house in the hills. I don't need somebody else to pay my bills. I just wanna fall asleep without my pills, for real. I don't need Balenciaga jeans. I'm just getting tired of being scared of my dreams, yeah. When I fall asleep without my pills, for real. And I don't need a house in the hills. I don't need a house in the hills. An elephant was bathing in a vino, and the guy was shooting up down in Reno. It's always good versus evil, and a K-pop star got too skinny. Someone got a face tattoo. Maybe I should make an appointment, so my mom can say I'm such a disappointment for fucking up my chances of employment. I don't need a house in the hills. I don't need somebody else to pay my bills. I just want to fall asleep without my pills, for real. I don't need Balenciaga jeans. I'm just getting tired of being scared of my dreams, yeah. When I fall asleep without my pills, for real. I don't need a house in the hills. I don't need a house in the hills. I don't need it, you don't need it either. I don't need it, you don't need it either. I don't need it, you don't need it either. And I don't need a house in the hills. I wish I followed the smoke out the window, chasing down freedom in my dad's Monte Carlo. Spend my money as fast as I could go. Didn't have to think about paying rent tomorrow. $20 on the dash, hit the gas, said you can have it if you can reach it. Now it feels like a memory I borrowed, just chasing down freedom in my dad's Monte Carlo. Sometimes that voice in my head sounds just like radio silence. In the back of my mind, you're always sitting there smiling. I can't drive fast enough to forget about it. Everything you've been looking for, I hope you found it. You're surrounded. So I wanna cry on a shoulder I know, but I'm stuck in between these two lines. I hit the road, guess that shows that I know, always needed what I leave behind. Before I got my heart broke, Monte Carlo, wanted to be rich cause we were so broke. Thought that we'd be famous, we were almost. Tell me where does time go when the bars close? Monte Carlo.
Red lights, crossroads, and there's nobody to follow. Pray for salvation, or you beg for survival. In space or on stage, we were dreaming about Apollo. Dreams don't last forever, it's a bitter pill to swallow. $20 on the dash, so hit the gas, said I can have it if I can reach it. Oh, before my heart broke, Monte Carlo. Wanted to be rich cause we were so broke. Thought that we'd be famous, we were almost. Tell me where does time go when the bars close? 'Cause I wanna cry on a shoulder I know, but I'm stuck in between these two lines. I hit the road, guess that shows that I know, always needing what I leave behind. Oh, before my heart broke, Monte Carlo. Wanted to be rich cause we were so broke. Thought that we'd be famous, we were almost. Tell me where does time go when the bars close? Monte Carlo.